Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 20 of the Cosmic Force. My name is Tyler Reganti, and on tonight's show, we have another Roundtable episode. Last time we did Caleb's favorite arc. This time, it is Emma's favorite arc. Plus, we also have some new comics in our weekly pull list. So let's go ahead and get right into it by saying hello to Emma this week. Emma, how's it going? I believe you said it is college. You've officially started the semester, correct?
That is correct. Yes. Hello, everybody. I started my first day of junior year of college today. I've been up for quite some time because I'm commuting for a week until I move into my new place. And so I'm very tired. However, like Tyler mentioned, we are doing my favorite arc. So how could I not be happy and energetic?
All right. And we also have Caleb here with us tonight. Caleb, I believe you said we have another new, this is our brand new segment. Let's check in with Caleb's Star Wars ties.
Exactly. This is the last one that I've received, so I'll probably need to go out and actually buy some myself. But this is a subtle one. This is the schematics of the Millennium Falcon.
I like
and
it.
From a distance, it just looks like a nice red and gold tie. So of the three that I got, this is my favorite. I am really, really happy with this. And I'm just really, really happy to be here. We get to talk about the Star Wars mainline series. It's a really good arc here. So, I'm real excited. I'm doing really well. I'm not too stressed here, unlike our people going back to school just now. But speaking of which, how's the reading going? How's the Tyler, how's it, or Jacob, how's it going?
How do you like selling and breaking contracts on selling boats? Does this sound interesting to you? Because that's what I read today. Yeah, boats. But no, it's
a little light reading.
Well, yeah, just a little light reading. But yeah, no, it's been okay. On another note, I do have to apologize for the audio listeners. I don't actually know how many of those we have. But I've been a few weeks behind on editing the podcast with moving and starting school. But I was able to get 2 out last week, and I should have no problem getting 2 out this week, which will catch us up. So if you're an audio listener, I apologize for the extended wait, but you should be good pretty soon. So.
Yeah, we've had life, unfortunately, gets in the way sometimes, but we're glad you're here, whether you're here with us live in the chat like Moonflyer and Blind Fates and everybody else that's in the chat. I see Neptune in here. I see Dale in here. Thank you all for joining us, or whether you are joining us on the audio podcast, whenever that is, sometime in the future. We thank you for your support. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We are a Star Wars comics podcast that broadcasts live right here on youtube.com/Mutiny every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. If you can't join us live, that's okay. These videos are available on our channel whenever you have the time, or on all of your favorite podcasting platforms. We're also part of the Mutiny podcast network of nearly a dozen shows and a Discord channel at mutiny.com/Discord with more than 1,000 members with dozens of channels to choose from, ranging from all types of topics. I think Spider-Man trailer was a big hit. Gamescom talk was big today. The Star Wars comics channel, and of course the Tempest Runner channel is also getting lots of love this week. So if you like some nerdy things that aren't necessarily Star Wars related, come on down to our Discord channel and join in on the fun. If you like what you see and you want to say thanks, then head over to our Patreon channel at patreon.com/Mutiny, where for as little as $5 a month, you can gain exclusive access to the entire Mutiny podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch and community involvement activities like our 4-hour trivia. I'm going to use the word extravaganza from last week.
Great word to use.
That was an experience. For those of you who were, I believe, was everybody here live at some point in the chat?
I was.
Oh, for sure. I stayed for pretty much the whole thing. It was entertaining the entire way through. And also, I feel bad for the guys.
Yes, my phone died at like 10:45, and I was like, okay, well, that's no big deal. They're probably done. You know, they've been going since 8. It's like 2 hours and 45 minutes. And then when I finally get around to checking my phone again, it's like 12:45, and I see Cheryl like, hey, great episode, really, or it was so much fun. I'm like, did this just end? And yeah, they went for 4.5 hours.
4 hours, yeah.
With plenty of trivia. Timothy was a great host of the evening. And it was a lot of fun, and I really encourage those of you who, if you're thinking about joining the Patreon, joining is a great idea, because these events, we do it for you, we do it for all of you, as our way of showing thanks, and it was a lot of fun. Kudos to all the guys from the Living Force,
especially Corey, poor guy,
and their painful night, and
especially
and
their
subsequent
livers
morning for our entertainment. We thank you for your sacrifice. So let's go ahead and get right into the main show tonight, and we start where we always do, with the weekly pull list. And what do we have on tap for this week, Jacob?
So we got a couple. First off, we have Darth Vader 2015, or Darth Vader number 15. Sorry, of the War of the Bounty Hunters event. Subtitled The Assassin's Choice, written by Greg Pak with pencils by Raphael Yanko, cover by Aaron Cooter. The colorist is Jason Keith, and letters from Joe Caramanga. Then we have Dr. Afra number 13, Guest of Honor, written by Alyssa Wong, pencils by Minkyu Jung, cover by Sarah Pacelli. The inker is Victor Olazaba, colorist is Rochelle Rosenberg, and letter Joe Caramanga again. And then the last one is, I give with, well, one, we're very excited, but I give with a bit of a caveat, is High Republic Volume 1. So long awaited by everyone I know that watches and listens to the Cosmic Force. But yeah, High Republic Volume 1, There Is No Fear, written by Kevin Scott with pencils by Ario Anandito, cover by Phil Noto, inker Mark Morales, colorist Annalisa Leone, and letterer Ariana Mayer. So I say a caveat because depending on where you get your comic books from, you may or may not actually be able to get it today. If you're trying to get a trade paperback from your local comic book store, or if you're trying to get it digitally from Comixology, which will give it to you cheaper than buying it single issue on Comixology will, then you can get it today. It also might come with, like, a lot of times they come with a cover gallery at the back, like have some variant covers so you can like flip through. So there is a little benefit there. You can get those today. But if you were getting it like a physical edition through Amazon or some other retailers, you're going to have to wait, I believe, until the 7th of September. So check it out. Depending on what you got going on, your shop may or may not have it, but you can get the Comixology link down below, as always, along with the links to the other 2 issues that came out today. So big news. I know we've all been anxiously awaiting this. I mean, even though we've all read the issues already, this coming out means we get to talk about it with the rest of the community, which is very exciting.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was going to say
I'm
that
very excited about that.
We are trying to wait until everybody can get it, but I believe the September 8th episode, which is, if I do my math correctly, in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, we are doing the roundtable for that book. So I'm going ahead and saying it now before we forget.
There's a bullet point at the end. I put it there. Don't worry about
it. But yes, so everybody is, we are all very excited. We all are, I mean, nothing but high praise for the High Republic. But yes, so that is something that if you can get your hands on early, go ahead and start reading that, because in 2 weeks, we really want you guys to join us and talk about it in the chat, like we do with every roundtable, like we hopefully you're doing tonight. But all right, thank you for that, Jacob. Now let's go ahead and go down to what we're loving this week. And my art of the week is coming from, it's technically from the Age of Rebellion, Tarkin. I got the hardcover on Free Comic Book Day, and the whole book is great. And so there's a good number of my art in the next couple of weeks is probably coming from this, but this is from Tarkin. The art is by Mark Lamming, and the color artists are Jordan Boyd and Niraj Menon. And I chose this because we don't really get to see a lot of violence in Star Wars comics. And while I don't condone violence, it was a very interesting, especially with it being from from Tarkin it was a very interesting choice, and to see this sort of imagery was just something that wasn't something that I was used to. So kind of caught me as soon as I turned the page and saw it, and it was a really excellent arc. So yeah, it was something that I enjoyed, and like I said, there's a couple more even better ones that I've got in line for the next couple of
weeks. So are you telling me that shirtless Tarkin is going to be coming up in the next few weeks?
That might be making an appearance. There might be an appearance of Boba Fett riding some mechanical something or other.
Okay.
There's I have a whole list of the ones that I've already pulled. So it's going to be fun. So, all right. As we talk about violence, I see Emma's shot in the preview here. So, Emma, what do we have in as your art of the week?
Oh, we got to stick with that violent theme this week. I guess we're all feeling a little bit testy. But anyways, I've got Star Wars 2015, number 43 here, art by Salvador Larroca. And I mean, it's punching Leia. That's like my favorite kind of Leia, you know? She's feisty, but she can also be a diplomat. But like, damn, she can throw a punch, you know? And also, the other thing I really liked here was Queen Trios's outfit, because it reminded me a ton of the Wonder Woman 1984 outfit.
Oh, yeah, I could see that
Wonder Woman was wearing, like with the gold, and she kind of has like, you know, on other pages you can see it better, but like she's kind of got like the abs and stuff. It looks really cool. I don't know. I really love these like two sets of arcs, you know, Mutiny and Mon Cala that we're about to talk about, and then this one was the arc prior. Because it's got some of like the best Leia content, and including punching Leia. We love it.
Outside of Naked Palps, I believe punching Leia is second for most appearances on our show. So
it has to be. I think that's accurate. Yeah.
It's a great trope.
So, yes, it absolutely is. All right, Caleb, what's your art of the week this week?
This one comes from TIE Fighter, issue number 2, art by Rohei Antonio and Josh Cassara. This is it was just a pretty fun little arc about, you know, seeing, you know, TIE Fighter aces and waning days of the Empire here. And, you know, I love the action that they showed here, but I like it when the main reason I picked this one is because we get these real cool like cutaways of like the shocked faces of the flight here. So as they like showed us, like there's something in kind of a arc there, that kind of shock there, and you can still see that they penciled in the flight suits and the helmet, so you know that they're still in the helmet, but we still get to have the you know, emotion there. So it's kind of a fun best of both worlds. When this one popped up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to you know, bookmark this one.
Yeah. Anytime that you can get some Imperial perspective, it's lots of fun. So Jacob, you've got an interesting
I do
choice here. So why don't you go ahead and give a little bit of backstory on this?
Right. So I think it was a couple weeks back, Corey, maybe a little bit over a month probably now, Corey sent a message in Slack trying to offload a bunch of his old books. He had a ton lying around, especially from the Mutiny book box days that he was trying to get rid of. So I bought a few books, and a bunch of other people, Tyler included, I believe, bought some books off of him.
Yep.
And he sent us all little care packages with, I mean, the books we paid for, but also some cool little merch. So some old like book box leftover merch. So the book boxes were well before my time. So I got some bookmarks, some stickers, and then I also got 2 issues. One of them I have right behind me, of this Mutiny magazine, which I believe was included in the book boxes. So
Yes,
that's correct. I remember subscribing to the Mutiny book boxes, and I still have my magazines and the bookmarks. Like, but I have to say, it is so weird to see that old Mutiny logo, because we've had the new one for so long.
Right. Yeah. So I of course had to feature some art from these. I got 2 issues. I believe this is issue.
What was your second issue?
I want to say
I have the same.
It's the one with like the people standing around the table that looks like something out like Squadrons or something like that. I can't remember.
So I've also got this one. I got the same one that you have, and then I've also got this one, which was, I guess, issue number 4 for actually, I guess it's the same image on the back. So that's got a nice little little Sith lightsaber down there on the bottom. So yeah, some nice little collectibles from
Well,
Corey.
it's
So thank you, Corey.
it's not Sith lightsaber because that, of course, would be copyright infringement. So it's a very
Oh, of course.
all of the art is very vague. There's one that looks like kind of like Thrawn, but it's definitely not Thrawn for that
It's
purpose.
just a blue-skinned man.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah,
A
so
humanoid in a
but-
military uniform.
I was looking at this art, and again, this was before my time. And on a tangent, I think we should divide Mutiny time into ABB and BBB, which is before book boxes and after book boxes, of course. But anyways, I was like, I don't know who did this, but there were I flipped it over, and on the back was like a section about like how they make the covers, and the artist at the time, I don't know if he was a Mutiny employee, was Keegan Blasey. Apparently, there was it talked about his process of designing it, and this art for this specific cover obviously has like a Palpatine looking man in the background with
You
some
mean a man in a hood?
yes, and a man in the hood with some generic sci-fi style spaceships, but the inspiration was the Maw from Solo. So
Oh,
There you
cool.
go.
I didn't
And-
know that.
yeah,
That's awesome.
so a little piece of Mutiny history here.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Very
that's some
cool.
really, really cool stuff there. So, Caleb, do we have a community art of the week?
Exactly. There's a little debate here about who would get it, but this one actually comes from Neptune, our community submission, aka Landon. This one's from the 2020 run, issue 13, so just has come out practically. This one has Luke squaring off against some bounty hunters when they're trying to track down Han Solo, Frozen, and Carbonite. And he did a really good Neptune did a great job like explaining why he picked it, and he has some really good points about it here about how like that color work works really well with his yellow lightsaber versus his black shirt. And get a lot of fun like shock on the antagonist on the enemies when he realizes they're squaring up against a Jedi and not just a farm kid. And it has C-3PO kind of quipping in the background, and that's always a plus there. So just a overall really fun action spread. So congratulations to Neptune. Keep it up. See if we can do it again next week. But there's some really tight competition. So, Moonflare, Blind Fates, I'm looking at you.
All right. Well, we are going to go ahead and take a very quick break. And then when we come back, we are going to dive into, like we keep saying, Emma's favorite arc, the Mutiny on Mon Cala. So we'll be right back. All right, we are back, and like I said, we are about to get into the Mutiny at Mon Cala, and I'm gonna give Emma a chance to really explain why she loves this so much. Before I do, I want to go ahead and give a little bit of background on this book. So the creative team, the writer is Kieran Gillen, the penciler is Salvador LaRocca, the cover artists are David Marquez and Matthew Wilson, the editors are Jordan White. This publication, the issues were released between March 8th of 2018 and June 6th of 2018. And this is technically book 8 of the Star Wars mainline trade paperback. It occurs 1 year after the Battle of Yavin, and it was also published concurrently with Dark Lord of the Sith, The Burning Seas. So it's a good time, very good stories for Star Wars comics back in 2018. But without further ado, Emma, I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to you, and so you can kind of lead the charge on our preliminary ratings and really tell us why you love this book so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, I want to preface this by saying this is not going to go down in history as the number one best Star Wars comic arc. And I totally get that. However, it has a very, very near and dear place in my heart because of just the great Leia content. So before I go any further in my description why I love this, I will give my rating and then I'll explain a little bit and then I'll give the guys a chance to as well. So I'm going to give this a 9.5. That's pretty high for me. And so number one reason, all the great Leia stuff. It shows her leadership. It shows her grit, her determination. You've got, the strategic side of Leia that we don't get to see all too often. Like she comes up with this like brilliantly detailed plan. And also, this is an extremely pivotal moment for the rebellion, getting a fleet of ships that they need later on to destroy the Empire. Like that is some really pivotal stuff here in this comic. And additionally, of course, the Leia stuff is my favorite in here. However, there's also some really awesome humor that I kind of forgot about. Like when I was rereading it for this episode, I was like, oh my gosh, this is like really funny. Like Han was funny. 3PO was great. This character, Tunga, he was great too. Like so much good stuff all around. It's one of my favorites. It really holds like a very close place in my heart. And the cover too. Oh my goodness, my favorite piece of Star Wars comic art ever. And I don't think will ever be surpassed in any way. Here it is. Jacob pulled it up. Oh my God, it's so good. Like I need to get a print of this for my condo. So I should look into that after the show. But yeah, oh my God, so good. So I'm going to toss the baton, so to speak, over to Tyler. I want to hear what you have to rate this before we get into our discussion.
So I'm not going to rate it as high as you. I think I'm going to rate this somewhere around 8.2. I really enjoy the story, and I think this is the best. The dogfight in a comic that I have read in like those scenes in the middle books were so entertaining when they were trying to block the blockade, and I could really I felt like it was like the panels were moving. It was great. The comedy is great. This is the first time last week when we talked about how Charles Soule writes Lando, and you can really hear Billy D in your head when you're reading this. This is how I felt with Harrison Ford. Like this was quintessential Han Solo. And I do really enjoy the story. The art was at times interesting. Actually, at all times interesting. Sometimes in a good way,
agreed.
Sometimes in a bad way. And I have to, this is a comic book. It's a visual medium. So that's where I have to penalize just a little bit because the art can sometimes be, it's an interesting art choice. Yeah. So you've got some panels. Oh, perfect. So yeah, so right around an 8.2. Still an excellent book. I thoroughly enjoyed the action of it. So and I'm sure that by the end of this, we've got another 30 minutes for Emma to convince me to bring that up. So Emma,
yes,
who we got? Who we have going next?
Yeah, and don't, you know what? You guys will not hurt my feelings if I know that this is like, when we're comparing, we're comparing apples and oranges here. So nobody will offend me. I promise. So Caleb, I want to hear your thoughts next.
If I don't usually like break them up between 0.5s, but I think I might be the low ball here and maybe say 7.5 to 8. It's good. There's a lot of really fun bits here, but like overall, like in the series, even in the 2015 series, like I feel like there are better arcs that I enjoyed a lot more. Going back and rereading it, there's a lot of elements I really liked. The comedy, again, it sounds like a dead horse, but it was a lot more popping out like in the humor side than I really remembered. There's some really good moments, but I feel like the next arc, the Hope Dies arc, was a way better arc as it finally like paid off all these dramatic moments, but it's still a really good like setup arc, and they had a lot of good things. So I'll say 7.5 to 8.
Okay, fair enough. Jacob, how about you?
Yeah, I'm gonna take a similar stance as Caleb, but I will give it a higher score. I think I'm gonna give it an 8.5. I think, honestly, the Kieran Gillen section of Star Wars 2015, which was like the third quarter of the book, is my favorite. I think that's really where it starts paying off. Whereas the beginning was still good, but it wasn't quite doing it for me. It was also, I think, a little bit too tied to the old, like the Vader and the Afro stuff. So this is where the book was really shining. But again, I think like Caleb, there are better arcs. But this was still very good. But there are better arcs around this. Like, yeah, Hope dies.
Yeah, no, I can totally see that point. Like, I think it's hard. Like, if I could pick to do these, like Hope Dies and Mutiny and Mon Cala together, because they are both so good. But like I said, there's just something about this one that I just love so much. So, anyways, let's get into our plot summary. And I believe, Caleb, you're gonna kick us off here in our plot summary.
Issue 1 / this is issue number 44. This one opens on a grand watery planet of Dak, aka Mon Cala, with our heroic Star Warriors and Admiral Akbar attempting to secretly meet with Grand Admiral / Regent Yotara, who's the acting regent since the Prince, now King Charlie, or Lee Char is now absent. They're spotted by an Imperial patrol, and they have a brief scuffle and explosion as they run through the jungle and escape the troopers. But the regent will not risk joining the rebellion in open while the king is still held with the Empire. He is not willing to risk his people. Retreating back to the Makata space dock, Leia decides to rally her forces and contacts their woman on the inside, Queen Trios, attempting to find and use their her insider information to see if they can spring the king, as it were.
Yes, and as we roll into issue 45, Leia has to present her report on the Mon Cala excursion, and she says that for now it was a failure, but we need somebody in charge that can support us. And they're like, we don't do assassinations. And she's like, that's not what I'm talking about. We need to free Lee Char. So she puts together her plan to free the king in chains and gets approval from the Rebel High Command that is much more in line with what the rebellion is all about. But in order to do that, they need to track down a very important asset, because part of what they need is they need the Moff in order to get through all of the security around the prison that Lee Char is in. So how do they get the Moff without raising suspicion? Well, they need to track down an asset on Mior Ain where is a shape-shifting Claudite named Tunga is being held, and he is an actor who is a very integral. We also have some Leia punching in this scene, because as soon as they open the door, Tunga is in of course, Bail Organa's shape, and trying to speak to Leia and try to. I don't really know what his purpose was there. But Leia's not having it, and so she punches him in the face and says, "That's not what you're here for. Let's go." And as we roll into issue 46, they go ahead and bring him up to speed on what they need him to do, and they basically need him to it's the opening of the Mon Cala Opera, and it's a 5-hour event. That's plenty of time for us to go free Lee Char, and you just need to sit there and stay in character that way. So it brings out all the Empire's elites, including the Moff, who they need to infiltrate the prison. The plan goes off without a hitch as they swap the Moffs and jet off to Stroke Hill Prime, the watery prison world where they are hope to free King Lee Char, as we get into issue 47, and Jacob's going to take over from there.
Right. So, as the main crew are trying to desperately fight off the underwater sea monsters, 3PO is also back at the opera, trying to keep Tunga in his proper place as the Moff in the middle of the opera, so briefing him on the intricacies of the grand performance. And then the plan back on, was it Starkill Prime? It's going pretty well until they finally actually arrive at Lee Char's prison cell, and he's kind of on life support right now. so not really in the place to lead a planet. But there is a solution. Leia and the crew are able to record the more or less last will of King Lichar before the guards storm in the room and kill him. But they get out with the recording and escape back to Mon Cala, where they meet with the Urcha again, and he refuses to help them though, and takes the recording at gunpoint after stunning Leia and leaving her on the ground. But much to the surprise of everyone around, King Urcha Regent Urcha has a change of heart and uploads the dying words of Lichar to the rest of the mercantile fleet around the planet.
Yeah, so and then now we're rolling into the last issue here, 49. This sparks like a gigantic revolt on all the ships, and the Imperials are totally done for. But they need a little bit of rebel help. So the rebels come to provide some cover as the Star Destroyers around Mon Cala try to block off their fleet. So there's a lot of like dogfights in this last issue. It's really, really awesome. And it leads to a single point of escape as the mutineers attempt to flee to hyperspace. There's essentially a ship full of coaxium, and they use it as a gigantic bomb. It's really cool. So the fleet is now fully armed in dry dock and is ready for the new rebellion. And Leia thanks Queen Trios for her help. She, however, when behind closed doors, contacts Darth Vader, instructing him that the trap should be sprung. So she's like a double, triple type of agent here. And it was a really interesting turn of events that really sets up the next arc. So that is the summary. Now let's move into the characters. And who else could we start with other than Leia, of course? She's, the real hero of this arc. And so I want to know from you guys, Tyler, I'll start with you. How do you think that this volume showcased her positive or maybe negative qualities? Maybe a little bit of both. What do you think?
I think the main quality that shows off here is two sides of the same coin, and that's her perseverance, and then her perseverance sometimes to a fault of, this is, we need to do this has to happen, we need to go, we need this fleet, the rebellion needs this fleet, but at the same time it's borderline, I don't want to say disrespectful of the Mon Cala people, because as Luke points out, Leia's made the ultimate sacrifice. Her planet is gone, but there's never ending, as far as her resilience. But I mean, I think through all the things that Leia sees through, even if it's not apparent to us, the reader, or the other characters, especially Han, she has a reason for continuing to push through, and she's usually right more often than not. I can't remember a time that she actually was wrong. So it was great. It's great to see her be challenged by Regent Urtia about the sacrifice, and see her kind of understanding, but still saying, look, I get it. I get what your people have gone through, but we still need you, and you still need to, we still need you to help us. So Leia in the comics is amazing. I don't, she's become she was already a favorite character of mine, but she's become so much stronger with every single arc I read. And this is I totally understand why this is a favorite arc of yours if you're looking at it from the Leia perspective, because outside of arc 2 in the 2020 book, I think this is the strongest we've ever seen Leia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I totally agree with you there. Like, I like how you bring up how she was challenged by the Regent to sort of look at her want, or I guess we could see it as a need for the fleet, like to challenge her perspective on that, like how it will affect the Mon Calans. And I think that was an interesting look at her character. And obviously, like, so many of her positive qualities are on display here. we get my favorite part, one of my favorite parts. I mean, I have so many favorite parts, but my favorite part has to be when she's making the plan to bring back King Lee Char, and that conversation she had with General Dodonna um, about stalling for time and things like that, and some of the words he said to her. And I thought that was like a really interesting moment of insight into her leadership and her leadership style. So I really like how they showed that off there, that she can be very intelligent with her planning and strategies, but also at the same time very compassionate and caring towards the people that she's trying to help. So Caleb, I want to know your thoughts. What did you think about some of the qualities of Leia that were on display in this arc?
She's definitely very, very, like, we see a very driven side of her. Like, she is 100% like full focus, like full. It's weird that she's, almost like fully trusting into Queen Trio. She puts all of her like chips in one spot and like goes all in on this thing, and that pays off really well this arc. Might not continue to pay off for those who haven't read it, but like one thing I did really like thought was very interesting is, when you're on a mission and they rescue the shape changer, I mean, they blow open the sail, and the first thing that she's confronted it with is the vision of her long dead father, Bail Organa, and like she doesn't blink for a moment. She knows that there's a shape changer in there, so she's like, there's not like a moment of like, oh, like, like guilt or sadness or like regret. She instantly like, no, I'm going to stun you. I'm going to tell you never to do that crap again. Don't ever pull that again. My father is dead, and move on with this sort of mission there. And that's like such a interesting sort of choice that you have done there. Because that's one thing that I was kind of realizing as I was going back through a lot of modern sort of things is we don't actually see Bail Organa die on Alderaan. We just know he was on it. And it's just interesting that no one's ever tried to bring back Bail,
Yeah,
for a half second, I had to remember that. I was like, wait, that's not really. So for longer than I should admit, I definitely got caught off guard.
I agree with you, Tyler. And you know what? And Caleb, I think it's interesting that you bring this up, because I kind of had to like think about it a little bit in my head, and then I was like, well, what if she like felt it through the Force? Like, she made like a really strong bond with him. And what if she just felt it? I don't know. There's something about that, but I'm glad that you brought up a good transition for me here. So, she saw her father as portrayed by Tunga, and she, like, as you said, had zero hesitation in knocking him out with, no sort of emotion or anything like that. Jacob, why do you think that she was like, so, besides what we've already said, I guess, why do you think she was so resolute in that action?
I think it's just inherent in her character and who she is as a person. I want to definitely talk about her, but I think it's interesting to compare it to the scene in the cave on Dagobah with Luke, where Luke's presented with a very similar scenario where, he knows something, like there's a like presence in this cave, and he's alone on this planet with Yoda and R2-D2, but when he walks in, he sees Vader and panics because he can't handle that. Like, he doesn't have the mental capacity to deal with that, or the emotional capacity to deal with that. But then you compare with Leia, who is presented with her father, who was just blown up on Alderaan not long ago, and you're at this random prison, and it's an equally crazy, like, impossible scenario. But instead of getting caught up in the moment and succumbing to her fears or her emotions, she handles it. She's here to do the mission. I think it's a byproduct of, her being raised in the rebellion and doing what needs to be done.
Exactly. On a slightly related note to that, I just finished from a certain point of view, kind of the short story sort of thing. And it's really fascinating because one of the short stories with Yoda is when he's finally visited by the ghost of Obi-Wan. He's like, yeah, I can't wait I should have trained that Skywalker kid. You should bring the Skywalker kid. It's like, yeah, I'll bring Luke right over. It's like, no, I don't want Luke. I want Leia. Yoda, I asked Yoda want to train Leia. She's probably way better than her, than her sibling there. Like,
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm very glad that you brought that up, Jacob. The difference between her reaction to a like startling familial sort of event, I guess you could say, between her and Luke, like that. It's very interesting. Their different reactions. She's much more confident in her response, and Luke is definitely more questioning, I would say. And speaking of trusting people, she definitely trusted Queen Trios quite a bit. I mean, you could say that the entire mission like hinged on the success of whether or not Queen Trios is going to betray them or not. So do you think, I mean, obviously we know at the end that Leia's trust and faith in Trios was in fact misplaced, but before we found that out, did you think that perhaps Leia was a little bit too trusting of Trios, and why? I'm going to start with you, Tyler.
I think this gets back to the negative element of her perseverance, and that you know what this is. Jared says in the chat, Queen Trios is the MVP of drunk trivia. So already we've got 2 mentions of drunk trivia last week. But I think this is an element of Leia's smarter than this, and Leia should know to keep an eye on her more than at least is described in this arc. And I think that her, at least to us, the reader, her blind faith in her is a little uncharacteristic and of Leia. And I think it's one of the few times where like I say, she's a little bit blinded by her ideals and how much the rebellion needs this. But I think Leia knows. Leia's smarter than this, and now I have not read the future arc, so I actually have no idea what happens after after that panel. So it shouldn't, I shouldn't sit here and say Leia should know better, but at the same time, I do feel that Leia is a smarter character and should have at least, maybe she did hedge her bets, and I just don't realize it yet as a reader because it's in another arc. I feel like she should have hedged her bets more, knowing her history and knowing what the potential for how poorly she could set the rebellion up.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that this showed like definitely, we talk a lot about the positive facets of her character that are on display here, and I think that this does a good job of showing one of the pitfalls of her character as well, not in like a bad way, but like a good way, because all good characters have good aspects and bad. I think it's like she saw her opening to get the one thing that she thought could win the battle against the Empire, win the entire war. She saw that opening, and she decided that it was like worthwhile to place trust in this one person that she felt like probably wouldn't betray them, even though we know that it ended up not being so true. And so I respect that this arc showed both of those sides to her, like the super strong and confident Leia that seems to always have the correct answers, but also the one that is endlessly hopeful, and that is it can be bad, but it can also be a really, really good thing.
Yeah, I think
Caleb, I believe you're gonna say something.
Yeah, like the big reason that why Leia trusts so much in Queen Trios is because she thinks the two of them are the same person. She sees so much of herself in Queen Trios, and they have the same upbringing of being, royalty and prestigious sort of country. Both of their families were killed by Darth Vader. Like, she thinks that Leia had to rebel against the Empire to try to save the future. And when she is met with Queen Trios, like there's a there's that she confides that I'm doing this because I hate the Empire and I want to help the rebellion because I will die if I stay in the Empire, and that's the sort of thing that's going on there. The big, like I said, like if you've read the Darth Vader comic book, like one of the things is that how Darth Vader intimidates Queen Trios is he goes to her and he gives her a giant chunk of rock and proclaims, "This is what's left of Alderaan. This is a reminder what happens if you betray me." and like it's such like an intimidating moment that you could like when you're reading it, you can absolutely see why she would want to rebel and be against that. But in the end, Trios is too weak to rebel fully, so that is why she still works with the Empire. And like it sets up a really, really great arc down the line after this like betrayal goes off, that really I think kind of culminates all of like Leia's characteristics when the whole return to Shor Trar goes off. So like that is why Leia trusts Queen Trio so much, is because she desperately wants to seed more of herself in her.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I can see
absolutely.
that being, we've made those comparisons before of Afra and Han Solo are kind of like the same character, except Han has the positive influences in his life and Dr. Afra doesn't. And that's an excellent point that you just made, that really like this could kind of be that same relationship. If Trios had the relationships and the people in her life that Leia did, that because I believe, I think you're absolutely right. I think in Leia's mind, there's no way that Trios would turn against them, because turning against them would mean siding with the Empire. And who would want to do that? Well, how dangerous this is and how awful they are. You would never side with
You've seen
Empire.
it firsthand. You saw him like kill your father in front of you.
And I think, yeah, she absolutely thinks we're the same person, but she doesn't, Trios doesn't have the positive influences that Leia has. And I think this is really one of those, mirror images that we've seen work so well in comics of what happens when you have these characters who don't have each other to bring them out of the muck and to help them stay on the straight and narrow, and have these other gray or evil characters.
Yeah, Jacob, any thoughts before we move on to Han?
No, I mean, I think you guys really hit it on the head. I think these are two. Well, I mean, I know the original play was to be talking about Leia, and we've gone off on a wonderful Queen Trios tangent. I like, she's one of my, I would say like a top 5 like favorite like comics original character for like the 2015 era for me. Like she's definitely very interesting, and yeah, between the Siege of Shu-Torun and the like Scourge of Shu-Torun, those are like both very interesting arcs that are definitely standouts for me. But yeah, moving on to Han. Han plays, I mean, he plays a somewhat of a minor role, I think, in this arc. Like honestly, like I was trying to find art for him, and I mean, to be fair, I was being lazy and like just like, all right, whatever, like let's check 2 issues, and like nothing stands out, and so I grabbed something. He's like more of a afterthought, I would almost like I really feel like, personally, to me, his role in this arc is to be a foil to which you compare Leia. Like, and it's like, oh yes, we have Han, the jokester smuggler, and then we have the responsible in Leia, who's gonna get all the shit done. But so I don't know. Like, so Caleb, how do you see that? Like, do you interpret it differently, or you kind of agree?
Definitely. Like, this is definitely in the they're setting up the Han like story arc. Not that he had too many major arcs in this whole run here, but like he's definitely like, this is Leia's story, so we're going to kind of have Han be a very much of his like trickster nature, his kind of jokey nature here. He's got some good scenes with Luke in the off time, in the scene, he casually blows up some stormtroopers and elects Chewbacca to be a hand towel. Like, there's just some wild jokey sort of bits. There's a really powerful bit there at the end where like right after the death of Lichar, Leia says, please don't say anything, and Han says, I didn't realize you didn't know me at all. Like, yeah, like Han definitely knows when to shut up, but he also knows that life is kind of a joke, and he's like, that's how he copes with these sorts of things. So no, he's definitely not exactly serious in this issue, but his actions are very, very good. I'm so glad Han is with them in this whole session here.
Yeah, I definitely feel like Han gets a lot of good moments in in this run anyways, and I feel like I feel like this was definitely more of Leia's moment to shine. Like, however, I did get to, I really enjoyed seeing like goofy Han instead of the more like, I got to get out of here, like ASAP Han, sort of not maybe enjoying himself is the wrong way to put it, but like he was having fun poking fun at everybody else, which I enjoyed seeing. Like he was just up to mischief the whole time. And at the same time, you could tell he cared about the outcome of the situation as well, which I thought was a great way to play it. I mean, when they were uh, getting off of the prison planet there, uh, he really did not want to lose the recording. He wanted everything to go right. So I enjoyed seeing that like duality of like he cares, but like he can also not take himself too seriously. And I think that's when Han is at his peak for me, is when you can see those two sides.
Yeah, I have two favorite parts in this arc for Han, and they do exactly that. The one part where they're briefing Tonga, and he's going on. I think C-3PO is going on about all the things that he's done and how he brags, and Han's like, all you do is brag about yourself, and Tonga quips back at him. Is like, well, if you did more than run the Kessel run, you'd brag about it too. And he kind of looks, and I don't remember who it was. I think it was Chewie, where he kind of mumbles because words are a little bit smaller. He turns at Chewie, and again, I can hear Harrison Ford. He turns at Chewie, and he's like, "See, he's heard of me," and that's like the charismatic, like that is the Han Solo that we fell in love with in the movies. Is that like he can be serious, but at the same time, like he's got those fun little sarcastic moments. And the other part, I don't remember. I think it was after the Regent said no again, right after he stunned Leia. Luke wants to go in hard on him and really try to give him a guilt trip. And Han's like, just let it go. There are some times when you just have to realize that you don't have a winning hand and you just need to walk away. And I kind of got, I don't remember if the text was in there or not, but I kind of got not only is this a time to walk away, but we're walking away because this is a very sensitive subject and we're talking about the persecution of an entire people and I feel like Han can see the Regent is doing what he feels is best for his people. And Luke, still in that farm boy innocence, can't see it. And Han's trying to give him that teaching moment of, don't do it. Just sometimes you just have to walk away and you just have to accept the loss. And it was a really, really way for him to act kind of big brotherish to Luke without coming down on him, and realize that this is a serious topic and we just let's not say anything that we regret. Let's just what didn't work out. Let's just go.
Yeah, that was a top tier moment for me too. Like, because you definitely got that vibe that Han has been in a situation like that before, where it's just better to walk away. Mm-hmm. And we've all been in those situations before, so he felt very relatable there. And sometimes I feel like, we can all relate a lot better to Luke out of the trio. And this is one of those moments where like I could really relate to Han here in that situation. Sometimes it's better to just walk away.
Absolutely. And one thing I did notice, I think Han's like smooth talking and quick action here has been getting better. Like he's has actually talked himself out of a couple problems there in that series. So A for improvement here. Though speaking of quick talking, the next character we have on the list is kind of the breakout character. My personal favorite from this entire arc here was the Claudite Tonga, the kind of shape changer here, and being like a shape changer and being able to go from like position to position. I felt like they did a good job of kind of fitting in with the crew and being like a valuable member. How did you guys feel about Tonga?
He reminded me so much of like a court jester or something like that. Just like this completely goofy dude. I thought it was interesting that gosh, I think his name is General Draven, the guy from Rogue One.
Yeah.
Yeah. He when he said, "Oh, we've got an asset that could help you here," And then we go in and break someone out of prison, and it's this like goofy dude who can change forms. I was like, how is this going to help the mission? And, you know, part of me wonders, like, what was Leia's thinking in this moment? Like, how is this going to help? How's he going to? I think what was really cool about Tonga for me is that he got along so well with C-3PO. And I love that for C-3PO. I mean, he finally has a buddy that he can like talk about the arts with and be sophisticated with. So I'm very happy for C-3PO and Tunga's friendship here.
Oh, absolutely. Like I like whenever we get C3PO in his element of like, you know, high society and like translating and things like that. It's like, oh yeah, that's why you exist. This is why C3PO is a fun character when he's not just walking around desert environments, when he's you know, trying to be a diplomatic and like, oh no, I have to translate the intricacies of a entire Mon Cala opera over 4 hours. Like, this is the hardest thing in the world. Like that sort of like panic of like C-3PO and like these great situations, which I totally like. I get it, they're fun, but you know, they're it's a lot of good. It's a lot of, why are we zooming in on that?
Hello there.
Yeah.
yeah.
I was gonna say, what are we looking at here?
Just
this is a visual gag. It was a visual gag.
Yeah, just
Okay.
the whole.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I completely missed
Tonga
this.
is like sticking his little head out of the little hole they cut in the bathroom wall. As that's when he's like going back in. He's like, "All right, I'll see you guys later."
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
totally
goodness, I
missed
didn't
that.
notice that. I thought you did that in like Photoshop or something.
No, he is there. You can take a look.
My
Wow.
favorite moment for Tonga was, I believe it was during the intermission when C-3PO was behind him, like kind of helping him small talk, and he was like, "Oh yes, the blowing up with the Death Star. Oh, that's not a big deal. We've got like 15 of those." And C-3PO was like, I don't think the Imperials would really admit that. And he was like, "Oh, but you know, we've got plenty of other like,
just
his And then he was like, and when someone was like, "Oh, what do you think of the shrimp harvest this year?"
Well, the harvests are up 16% over the last 4 quarters.
C-3PO is like trying to give him, and he's like, "It's boring. Nobody cares." And I was just like, that was a moment of levity that I wasn't expecting, and I enjoyed that because I feel like a Moff would exactly say that. I think Moff would absolutely grandstand about how awesome the Imperials are. There was another thing right before then, conversation that I don't remember what the details of it was, but again, he answered it right like I thought he would, and then Moff, it doesn't care about the shrimp harvest on a planet like Mon Cala. I mean, nobody cares about that, and that was my favorite Tonga moment. And I haven't read any of this. I would like to see more of him. Does he come back at all, or is he one of those characters?
A little bit.
Okay, he does. Okay, cool. Because that's exciting to hear.
Yeah, no, speaking of favorite moments with Tonga, like there was a moment where he was talking to Luke. Luke had just gotten into the stormtrooper disguise, and he said, you play a really good stormtrooper character," or he says something like this.
Right. Yep.
"You play a really good stormtrooper character, except you just seem to be a little too short." I was like, that's a great.
You're on the low grade for the allotment of
Right.
It looks like canon.
Yeah. Oh my god, it was such a good callback.
Yeah. Well, in addition to Tonga, we also get two, I'm going to call them new characters because they're new in the comics, and that's Regent Urtia and Lee Char. Now, we all know that Lee Char was played a character in no, not Rebels. I'm sorry, Clone Wars.
Clone Wars.
So how do we, the Regent's in a very difficult place. Lee Char is technically the king, but I believe he was arrested, right? That's why he was in prison.
Yes.
So
Yes.
he was never formally replaced. So Urtia is definitely ruling the Mon Cal people in Lee Char's stead. It is not up to the Regent to make the decisions. It is. I kind of took the impression of he's making what he felt would be Lee Char's, ideas and leading in his example. And so I'm going to ask Jacob, do we see, he's very resistant at the beginning of the arc. He ends up, with this heroic moment at the end where he's able to broadcast the message, the Lichar's last words. Is this a tragic arc? Is this a heroic arc? Is it a little bit of both? Like, how would you describe his arc in this book?
Yeah, so I think it's easy to just be the passive reader, kind of like flipping through the book and be like, wow, I don't like Utra or Urtia. I mean, he's like going against our heroes. He's in the way. He's an obstacle they have to overcome. So like, I don't like him. But we mentioned it offhand earlier, but this was published simultaneous with Burning Seas, which is a really cool arc in the Dark Lord of the Sith comic book, where it is kind of like the flip end of this. So like they were back, like, kind of back-to-back issues, and it is the Darth Vader leading the Empire and the Inquisitors on Mon Cala, and like it's called Burning Seas for a reason. They just destroy the place. And you see what happens when the Mon Calamari like stand up to the Empire, and you see the effects of it, and that's the whole thing with Lichar. Like these issues were going back and forth, and you have the suspense of like, what's gonna happen with Lichar? Where is he in the Star Wars arc? And they're like, are they gonna save him? And then you find out like around the same time that no, Lichar got like destroyed, and that's he's on life support. So it's an interesting thing to compare it and see, when you have the backstory of, hey, they went through some awful things. They tried to stand up. Radis tried to stand up in Rogue One, and he's dead. And all these people like sacrifice so much. And Urcha at this point is just trying to hold the plan together and try and keep his people safe. Which I think you always got that impression just reading this. But when you see what they went through, I think it hits so much harder. So he's definitely a much more sympathetic character, I think, in that regard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree. I definitely, I wasn't a fan of him at first, but at the same time, like Jacob was saying, he's like pretty sympathetic when you think about it, because, he wants the best for his people, and he truly feels that giving the ships to the rebellion and betraying the Empire is truly not the best for his people. And like, there's something there that you can like respect about that, like just wanting the best for his people without being biased about it. Even if he's wrong, it's just a matter of like what he believes in, trying to be a good leader and all of that. So I respected him for that at the end. And of course, I thought it was cool that he sacrificed himself and only himself at the end, because that meant more to me than like if he held this big meeting with all the Mon Calans and then decided to have everybody, betray the Empire, and then all those people die. So I thought it was a fitting ending for him that really reclaimed his character in my eyes, for sure.
Yeah, and the other Mon Cala that's featured pretty heavily in this is Lichar, and he has a pretty impactful part of this for being literally in so few panels.
Like one issue. He's just there for one issue.
Yeah, and even then, I think he's only in 3 panels in that issue. So, Caleb, I'm going to ask you, how do you feel? Did you think that was effective? Do you think, what do you think of his fate in this story? And do you like the way that he was used as, in the beginning of the arc, where it's like, we have to go get him. We're going to go rescue him. Oh, wait, he can't be rescued, but he's got a final, like, he was used throughout the entire arc. How do you like his usage?
It was interesting. Like, he was somebody that was introduced in the Clone Wars series first. He got some like mixed reactions there. He was, kind of a young, plucky kid. Then the same sort of thing happened in the arc, the Burning Seas, where he definitely had a lot more of like a point plot to play in there. He was a lot more active and doer in this one. So in this arc, you're kind of like, okay, so where is he? What has he been doing? Like, are we going to see him again? Are we going to recruit him and he's going to be an ally? And when we finally like open up that door and we see him and we see that, oh no, like this is what the Empire has done to the king. They have literally, crippled him and broken him to like a shell of a Mon Cala. He's no longer like feel fit to even walk now. And it's just kind of like this weird, like kind of gut-wrenching scene of like, oh, this little kid that was plucky and that learned about courage from Ahsoka is now and has then stood up and acted on that courage to stand up against the Empire, has now been so utterly crushed and defeated by him. But then finally, and when he's given the option, he still like stands up and begs his people to resist. And it's just kind of like this, like, you can't get a really good character arc here. It's tragic, it's sad, but it is definitely one that I am glad that that's where they went with this character. Like, I didn't know what they could have done. There's a lot of, like having it sounds obvious, but having an alive character gives you a lot more options to do down the line. Like, they could have brought him back in the next series. Like, he could have been like someone to play off with Admiral Akbar, but no, they decided that he would be that we're going to end his character arc here, where he takes the ultimate, like, sacrifices his life to try to impel rebellion. And that was a good arc. So overall, I'm happy with what they did with Prince Bleachar. It was tragic, but they did a good job with that characterization.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's interesting to see the comparison between him in the Clone Wars and him in this arc, because in the Clone Wars, we see him as, sort of the underdog, but he still keeps his hope. And in this arc, he is also an underdog, but also still keeps his hope for Mon Cala. And I like how they carried over his sort of plucky attitude, even despite the worst of circumstances in both sort of situations that we've seen him in. So I think that's all for Lichar and Urtia. I never know how to pronounce his name. It's so tough. So Jacob, do you want to round us out for the characters with Luke?
Yeah, and I mean, I was doing Han earlier, who was, kind of a little bit of a footnote, and I think Luke almost is even more so in this story. Again, it's all about Leia, and that's pretty great. Luke has had his time in the spotlight, but yeah, Luke has he's a good old, backwoods farm boy off Tatooine, loves drinking his milk in the bar, which
he's the baby brother of the group.
Exactly. Confession time, guys. The reason we're talking about Luke last is while I was doing the show notes, I was listing out all the characters that was important to talk about. And when I got to the end, wait, is there someone that we haven't? Oh, I guess I should probably put Luke in here. He's kind of a main character to arc.
I don't know if we really even needed to be on. It's a very touching moment, but I think it's the moment outshines the character in this arc, I think.
Exactly. The moment we're specifically talking about is when he meets up with Wedge and he buys him a special milk, and they're talking about what the Death Star run, and it turns out that Luke remembers every single member of the Red Squadron that passed away, that died during that mission. It's kind of like, oh, this farm boy still remembers a whole lot about this. He feels this so deeply, and that's almost mirrored a little later in the underwater sequence. They're being chased by a giant, huge fish, and Luke almost it's they don't really expound upon it too much, but he goes outside to distract the thing, and it's almost like he's willing to sacrifice himself for the mission. He's willing to get eaten by that giant fish just like that. He doesn't even care about his life at that point, as long as the mission can be done.
Yeah, the wild thing about him remembering all the names is it's a lot of names. Red Squadron's bigger than I thought about, and he was part of Red Squadron for 2 hours. He shows up at Battle of Yavin, he hops in the cockpit, and that's it. And then they're all dead. And he still they still left an impression on him enough for him to remember every single one of them.
Other than the Death Star briefing, we don't even know. Does he have interactions with any of those? And with Porkins
they all sounded off together.
Yeah.
They all counted numbers together, so
obviously he would remember Biggs, but
he was not on the Biggs Porkins vacation, so no, I don't know if he really had that bond with him.
Oh my goodness, we gotta do an episode all on that one issue right there. It deserves it. I honestly think Luke definitely has just a horrible case of survivor's guilt. I mean, if he remembers all of those names with people that he didn't even really know all that well, except for Biggs, like you guys said. And honestly, you can feel that weight that he's carrying with him. I think that's why he was like so reckless with trying to distract the fish that was chasing after their ship. I honestly think that that's why he like wanted to sacrifice himself. He wanted to do something that mattered as much as his other squadron members that died. And also it was an interesting sort of foil with Han, where Han said something like, you shouldn't be getting too attached to people, especially people in a squadron. Han sees them as disposable, whereas Luke thinks that everybody should survive no matter what as a team. So very interesting sort of counterpoints there. So I think that'll do it for our characters. Let's move on quickly to the moments here of this arc, and we're gonna start out with the funny moments. And we've already talked about this quite a bit, but I feel like there's some really good moments worth repeating here. First off, right in the beginning, we notably see our crew and Akbar waiting for the Regent on Mon Cala, but not underwater. They were in like a nature preservation type of thing, and everybody was questioning Han about like how he knew about this spot, why it's here, and he said, "Well, I'm a smuggler. Of course, I'm gonna want to be in this like deserted area." And he was like playing all coy, and he blew up an Imperial patrol with a thermal detonator, trying to bribe them with a blank credit chip. It was like solid Han humor in the first issue, the beginning of the first issue. Arguably one of the funniest moments had to be the Han and Chewie playing bathroom waiter or like
That was
attendants.
the best, especially when like after like the Han not only volunteers like Chewbacca to be like as a hand towel, he like does the so like you got a tip, and then
Yeah.
I think my favorite line is like he's like, "Oh, don't get so angry, Chewie. I'll split it with you."
God, it reminded me. So this is gonna be like quite the reference, but in Dumb and Dumber, the two guys play the bathroom attendants because they need money for food. It just reminded me of that so much.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not only does he convince an Imperial, high official that wiping their hands on a Wookiee is a high society trend, he's then able to convince her to tip them. I mean, that's pure gold right there.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. And only Han Solo could pull that off.
Right. Absolutely.
And then of course, more funny moments. We've got Luke and all the milk jokes, and he doesn't want anything too strong, so he's gonna get a milk, and you gotta keep playing on the milk. So
exactly.
That was funny, and of course all the Tunga stuff with him being the Moff, the acting and the extravagant entrance into the opera, which is something totally out of the character of the Moff, and the intermission stuff. Oh my gosh, all of that was so funny. And of course, we also had some dramatic moments. Caleb, what about those?
Yeah, like overall, I think this arc was definitely, I think, had more funny moments and dramatic moments, but there's a lot of really good ones here. As I already talked about, there's like the death of Lee Char. I think that's kind of when the switch got flipped on this arc. It's like like jokes can leave the room now. We're about to get serious here. So there's the death of Lee Char. There's the space battle and the sacrifice of the Aurora Flare. That was the name of the ship I had to look up. Holding the coaxium. Like, it seems like rebels escaping a blockade is like I think like that is 90% of all the space battles we see in Star Wars, especially in the Rebellion era. It's like, oh boy, we gotta get out of this blockade sort of area here. So the sacrifice of the coaxium to try to save the fleet so they can escape out of there, and then kind of the ending there with now they had the fleet, this like realization that Queen Trios will be betraying them, and that it's about to get a whole lot worse instead of getting a whole lot better. So there's some like really good like dramatic moments right in the back half, right when they kind of finished it up.
Yeah, for sure. Really, really solid moments all around. So let's see here. Tyler, I'm gonna give you last word before we re-rate. I believe you wanted to talk a little bit about the art.
So we've got to talk about the art a little bit, because first off, like the way that this book starts, where we're on the surface of Mon Cala, is beautiful. Like, we don't see those light blues in a Star Wars book that often. The light blues and the browns is great. And the faces of Han and Leia are almost photorealistic. Then you get a little bit farther in, and some of the faces, especially when they're like painful, it's like they're able to see the art in the book because their faces just don't quite. It's just Jacob yeah.
Well,
which one are you zooming in on here? Because there's a couple of them on this one that are just
The
like,
Moff's face is definitely the worst
Okay.
offender. Yes.
Oh, are we talking about the fourth panel? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I think the term is the uncanny valley.
Yeah. It's just, there are just some moments where it's like, that looks awesome, and it looks like Harrison Ford. It looks like Carrie Fisher. And then there are some moments where it's like the mouth goes a little lower there. You kind of have to, but so I wanted to at least comment on that, because again, the comics are a visual medium, and going through the book and seeing, these sorts of comments or seeing these sorts of these things and trends is something that, we want to call attention to. And again, most of the art is outstanding, but I think this is the first time in all the things that we've read where I've come to a panel and I was like, oh, okay, that's a decision that you made. And, I'm not an artist myself, so I can't judge, but it was definitely something that the first time in 20 weeks of us really doing deep diving into comics content where I noticed something. I was like, okay, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's definitely pros and cons to doing a more photorealistic style of art. Like, it works sometimes and it doesn't work sometimes.
Yes.
But I appreciate the effort though, because I feel like it's we don't see it that much. So, like the photorealistic stuff, which I mean, maybe there's a reason why. Maybe I don't know, but there was definitely some moments, especially with Han and Leia, where it was like, oh my God, that looks like a picture of Carrie Fisher, or that looks like a picture of Harrison Ford, and it looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
So there was definitely good and bad there.
The part when you're like a maybe too much of a Star Wars fan is when you can look at a panel and know the exact scene that he pulled for photo reference to like do these pictures. It's like, I think the one that stuck out to me the most, I think, was Luke's face in the like milk bar scene, like the one in the middle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
like,
where that's
Like, hey, that's Obi-Wan.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Like, he's looking up at Obi-Wan here. Yeah, I can see that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there was another one when he was screaming, which I think was from the Death Star when he saw
Probably,
Ben die. Yeah. So Jacob, do you want to close us out with some Easter eggs?
Sure, yeah. It's not as long as the list as normal. I did, well, one, I did them like half an hour before the show started. But two, like my normal method of like just Wikipedia-ing every single like proper noun came up with a lot of things that like literally was only in this arc. So there were, not as many like connective tissue in this one, which is totally fine. But we have a few. So we have at the beginning when they're like fighting on this island in Mon Cala, Han runs towards the shore where Chewbacca's waiting, and he yells, "Start the boat." Probably a reference to him yelling "Start the plane" as Indiana Jones in was it Raiders?
Yeah,
Raiders,
Raiders,
in the opening gambit in the Maya territory.
Which we had
Made me laugh so hard.
we had a Raiders reference in Dr. Aphra in Volume 1 too. So I guess, I mean, we got some Indiana Jones fans, not really that surprising. But back in the milk bar scene, Hobby and Zev mentioned General Syndulla running them through training exercises, and of course we see her operation over in the Aphra series, where she's using an old separatist like command ship.
Droid command ship.
Yeah, it's like a Lucra Hulk or something like that. I can't yeah.
Nice pull. Yeah.
So speaking of Hera, we do see her and Zeb in the big command meeting. I think Shriv might be there as well. It's a Duros. It's kind of hard to tell. But Hare and Zeb are definitely there.
Mhm.
Then you have Tunga, our shapeshifter, who's a Clawdite, and you might not recognize the species name, but you definitely will probably recognize the most famous member of that species, which is Zam Wessel, the shape-shifting bounty hunter from Attack of the Clones. And then, of course, we mentioned earlier, Tunga mentions how Luke looks short in his stormtrooper disguise, an obvious reference to A New Hope. The giant sea monster in the prison planet is, at least according to Wikipedia, an OPC killer, aka a gooberfish from
Gooberfish, big gooberfish.
big gooberfish from Naboo, one of the giant sea monsters. Which, of course, there are always a bigger fish.
There's always a bigger
Yes.
fish.
I was waiting. I was waiting for that line.
Someone had to do
There's
it.
always a big fish. But and then the stormtroopers in the prison base. I'm shocked I saw this.
Yeah.
They're playing
I noticed it too.
cards, and if you look closely, they're just like real life playing cards. Like one of them has like there's like a few like
Like a
flying
Queen
up in
of
the
Hearts.
air. Yeah, it's like a Queen of Hearts and like a Jack of Spades in there. It's not like Sabak or Pazak or anything like that. No, it's just playing cards. So I don't know if is Texas Hold'em canon? I don't know. Possibly.
Maybe.
Go fish.
What's the Texas of Star Wars? A
Ooh.
discussion
Ord
for another
Mantell?
time.
Yeah, put it in the Discord. What is the
Yeah.
Texas of Star Wars? We need to know.
Wherever Mando is at that time and place. But so then we had that. Then the Mon Calamari ship full of coaxium. We found out it was headed for Red Hern, which was a planet first mentioned in Battlefront Twilight Company by Alexander Freed. And then lastly, at the end, they drop off Tunga on the Cosmotanic Steppes, which is a frequently used location in the Dr. Aphra series. You'll recognize it if you watched our Dr. Aphra Roundtable a couple months back. So that is it for Roundtables. An abbreviated Roundtables. Easter eggs, an abbreviated Easter eggs, but good nonetheless.
So I went back to that panel with the cards. Not only are they playing cards, but they literally show you a Jack of Diamonds and a Jack of Spades in the book. So yeah, that's playing
great.
cards are officially in
Canon.
Star Wars canon.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, boys. So really quickly, let's go around the room and re-rate the volume. I will go first, and I am going to stay at my 9.5. I just love this arc so much. There's just something about it. I've already said it 1,000 times over in this episode. Just all the Leia stuff was great. Humor was great. The drama was great. Connections with Mon Cala and some of the stuff we've seen in other Star Wars media in the past was fun. Seeing how the rebellion is expanding in this time is always so interesting, and especially with something as important as the Mon Calamari fleet being assembled. Like, that's huge. Just so many good things in this arc, and really one of my all-time favorites for sure. So Tyler, what is your final rating?
So I'm going to bump this up to an 8.5 from an 8.2. And because I really liked the conversation that we had where when Caleb was talking about the similarities between Queen Trios and Leia, and really being able to see that, and it kind of negated one of my points against it, in that Leia should have known this, and really she's smarter than this as a character, and really shouldn't have put all of the eggs in that one basket. But that conversation really kind of put that whole element in a different perspective for me, and I kind of now write it off as a plausible situation. So bumped it up to an 8.5.
Awesome. Caleb, how about you?
I was wavering around there, so I think I'll put it at a solid 8.0. I don't, that's I think it was a really good, session. Like it, when we added more to what the rest of the series has been doing and been going through, like I think it's like a really solid story, tells a great connective tissue there, and it'll move on and to really fun heights here. So yeah, there will definitely not like we would ever recommend you skipping arcs in the series, but definitely worth your time. Give it another read if it's been a while. Yeah, 8.0.
Awesome. Finally, Jacob.
Yeah, so I started at an 8.5, and I traditionally do half number values only because it requires me to think less. And I'm really bad at like just giving a subjective rating on something, but I'm going to give it an 8.75. I don't think it quite comes to, so we're going in quarters now. I don't think it quite hits that height of a 9 plus, but it's still a very enjoyable arc, and it sets up a lot of a lot of really amazing storytelling in the back half, and of course, it's a great chance to spotlight the character of Leia, um, and she starts off. She's always been kind of like a leader in the rebellion, even from the get go in A New Hope. But we really see, I think, her evolution into a really like prominent figure in episode 5 and on. So just it's small growth because she's already here. She doesn't need to get much to get up here. So, but yeah, I love this, and yeah, 8.75. Still a great arc.
All right. Well,
Awesome
congratulations,
stuff.
Emma. You have convinced all of us to raise this even higher than our first initial scores. So, I want to take one more moment before we close out the show tonight to remind you that our next roundtable, which is on September 8th, will be the highly anticipated The High Republic There Is No Fear trade paperback. As Jacob explained at the top of the show, there are some instances where you can get it already as of today, either digitally or in your local comic store. There are some instances like Amazon where there might be a bit of a delay until September 7th, but everybody should have read it by, or will have ample enough time to read it. I believe all of you who regularly tune in or regularly join us in the chat have mentioned that you guys are reading it, the actual issues as they come out week by week. So that next roundtable is 9/8. So if you have been waiting to get the trade paperback to read this, it's great. You will fly through this. It is so great if you have already read anything of the High Republic. I believe I saw a question in the Discord. It was either in the Discord at the top of the show in the chat about whether or not what they should read first when it comes to the High Republic. Always start with Light of the Jedi, and then kind of go from there. Come to the Discord channel. Let us, let us help you. But you absolutely must read Light of the Jedi before you read this, or else you're gonna get kind of lost. So,
For sure.
all right. Well, that will do it for this week's episode of the Cosmic Force. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, or right here on YouTube, as we broadcast live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Be sure to also visit utini.com for reviews, articles, and news for the entire expanded universe. Go ahead and join us for all of our amazing Star Wars and non-Star Wars conversations in our Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/Discord. And you can also help support the show by heading to patreon.com/Utini and start receiving exclusive perks starting at just $5 a month. A special thank you to OK Endar, Cheryl Bell, Patrick Ortiz, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, as well as Carl Hickman, Elizabeth Cloutier, Jason Mitchell, Freddie C., and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. Don't forget, you can also tweet the show at Cosmic Force Show or at any of us hosts individually. I'm at Ty Rags, Emma is at Irma Jedi 26, Caleb is at Caleb Lamanek, and Jacob is at Jacob Bosch. Thank you again to Emma, Caleb, and Jacob for hosting with me tonight. Thank you to all of us, all of you that were in with the chat with us live tonight. And thank you wherever and whenever you are tuning into this sometime into the future. Until next week, may the Force be with you.